In this video, we'll have a more in-depth analysis on SS Korrina and Marshadow. So she is a ghost tech, quick to fairy. For stats, she has high HP, good attack, decent defense with defense, very high speed. So her first passive is good form. Basically, the higher your stats are raised, the more damage you do. This is really good. It caps at 45, which is the max buff you can have. And if you get to max buff, you have a 120% multiplier, which is very unlikely. Really have a chance to get that high. It's quite impossible. So for the calculations later, I'll just put it as 18 buffs to make it a bit more realistic. And 18 buffs is quite easy to get. Next passive is Better Prepared 9. A power up move when the opponent have any stats raise. This is really good. More damage. For Tweeters 9, you have a 100% chance to buff one random stat when you attack, which is good to activate good form. So first move is Spectral Thief. 2 gauge, 3 users. Basically, you lower your opponent's stats to normal and then you buff your own stat by the same amount. And then after that, you do damage. From the trailer we saw you steal stats first before you attack. So I would assume that Spectral Thief will always activate Better Prepared 9 since you steal stats before you attack. So when you steal the stats, your opponent will have no buffs. Hence, you activate the passive. Next one, Direct Hit O+. This is really good. Obviously, it makes the crit very nice for your entire team as well. Next up we have Shadow Punch. It's kinda whatever, but there is something in the grid that makes Shadow Punch quite useful, especially in Gauntlet. And also you have 100% accuracy for Shadow Punch, which is quite nice. Trainer move is Greater Heights. You plus 4 attack, plus 3 speed and evasion. Not bad. Sadly, you cannot max attack, so you might want to bring another support, or you can just rely on maybe for Tweeters 9 to buff your attack. And maybe you can steal stats to buff your own attack as well. Guess it really depends. Single move is Shadow Shrouded Spectral Thief. Damage is increased when the target has no stats raised, which is easy to do, but there's a chance that your opponent will buff themselves before you sync. So that might actually suck. It's easy to set it on paper, but there's a chance you cannot, right? Unless you bring another sync pair like maybe Lear and Hoopa. You can snatch away the stats, then you kill out the sync move. Overall, at 1 out of 5, she is pretty good. She can do some decent, pretty good actually DPS, mainly because of Better Prepared 9. 90% multiplier is quite nice and good form as well. So Speculative, good damage. Nuke is decent, and of course you can buff crit as well, so you have some crit support. Let's move on to the sync crit. At 1 out of 5, you get Speculative MGR 3, which is good but not useful since high speed 2 gauge move, not really needed. You have MPR 2 for Direct Hit O+. It's, again, you can max crit anyways. This Sentry 1, it's okay, I guess you can get the plus 5 attack, but it's a waste of energy honestly. At 2 out of 5, you get Sync Reload 9, this is pretty good. Right, you get back 1 MP every time you sync. Better Prepared 3, more damage, nice. Super Duper Effective 3 for Shadow Punch, not really useful since you're gonna use Speculative more often, right? MPR 2, not useful as well, unless you want to max speed and evasion, which you don't need. 3 out of 5, you get some really good stuff. Furious Brawn, this is really good. At plus 6 attack, 30% multiplier. And it's somewhat easy, you can get to plus 4 attack. You need another way to get it to max. You have another for Tweeters 9. You already have 1 in the passive, you can get another one here for some more buffs to activate good form. Your Rising Tide, this is really good, right? Since you can steal stats, you have 4 Tweeters 9. Your nuke can hit a lot of damage, and it caps at 18 buffs, and at 18 buffs, you have 120% multiplier. Quick Tempo, this is okay, but again, speed is high already. Don't really need it unless it's for like some specific team composition. Shadow Punch, hit reload 4, 30% chance to gain back MP every time you use Shadow Punch. This is really good, especially for Gauntlet, right? Since if let's say you run out of Speculative MP, right? Only 3 users, you can just spam Shadow Punch and until you get back the MP, and then you just use Speculative again. And then your opponent will never have any buffs, which is really nice. You have another for Tweeters 9, so if you get all 3, that's kinda cool. Right, every time you attack, you have a chance, you have 100% chance to plus 3 random stats. Last one, we have Trainer move, Slippery 2, plus 2 evasion, which is, I don't really see this being useful. So I have 3 builds to show you guys. The first one is for Champion Stadium, a nuke build. You have Rising Tide for some big damage, right? Then you have Focus 9, 2 of them, I guess, to activate good form, higher damage. Next one is for Gauntlet, also a nuke build. Instead of going here, you just take hit reload 4, you sacrifice this 1 tile, which is fine since you're gonna do more DPS, right? This one. The last one is Speculative. if you want to support another nuker, right? So you're not gonna take Rising Tide, you're gonna take Fierce Brawn, Better Prepared 3 for some DPS. So let's compare DPS between Korrina, Signature Renegade Cynthia, as well as Alistair. So for Korrina, she has Fierce Brawn and Better Prepared 3. Cynthia has Super Duper Effective 2, Super Duper Effective 1. Alistair has Whole of Stage 2 and Super Duper Effective 2. So let's look at the damage. So Speculative has the highest one, 12.2k. That is insane, and it's a 2 gauge move. So you have 2 passive that increases damage, right? 18 buffs from good form, and then Better Prepared 9. No stats. Better Prepared 3 again. No stats on the opponent, right? To activate it. Fierce Brawn plus 6 attack. Quite easy to set up, all of them. Except I guess maybe Fierce Brawn a bit difficult. Right, you need another way to max attack. For Cynthia, you have Shadow Ball. I'll show the Shadow Force one later. Shadow Ball, 6.5k. It's okay. It's good. You have 10% assuming only once, sync pair. This one her damage can become higher with most, sync pairs, right? Assuming only 10%. You have Super Duper 1 and 2. Then we have Alistair, Shadow Ball. We have Hold of Stage 3, Toxic Power 3, Super Duper 2, Hold of Stage 2. All of them are fairly easy to do. For the Restrain one, you just use your G-Max Terror, right? Toxic Power 3, she has Touch Bomb, 100% chance to poison. Just use it to poison your opponent. We also need to remember that Cynthia has Sundering 9, 100% chance to either -1 defense, -1 special defense, or both. So let's assume we just get it to -2 special defense. It becomes 9k, higher than Alistair now. And then, of course, she can have higher damage with Gold Zone, right? She can set up Gold Zone herself, but I'm not gonna include it here. So let's convert this to per gauge. And Korrina has insane per gauge. Insane per gauge. It's only 2 gauge, right? So she has very high efficiency. Cynthia has higher than Alistair. Now, for those curious about Shadow Force, I guess. Here is Shadow Force. So Shadow Force 20k. This is insane damage and it's without zone. I haven't included zone. So we have Super Effective up next effect. Since she has the thing, right, when you use Shadow Force, you get a Super Effective up. Then you also assume -2 defense. This is like insane damage, right? And again, it's without zone. If it's with zone, it's 30,000. But then again, we have to divide it by 2 since Shadow Force is a 2-turn move. So you divide 2 to get per turn. Now let's compare nuke. For Korrina, we have Rising Tide. So Cynthia, we have Brainsting 5, and then we have Smarty Pants. Alistair, we have Virulent Toxin 5. So let's look at nuke. Cynthia has very high nuke. It's insane, almost 100k. Brainsting 5, easy to set up. Her trainer can +4 attack and special attack. You don't need to get it to like +6. You don't have to max it. As long as it's +1, you get the multiplier. We also have Smarty Pants. This one is a bit difficult to set up maybe. She can debuff it, but it's not 100% of the time, right? So you might have to rely on another sync pair to debuff special defense. Then her innate multiplier is Gold Zone. Then we also assume that we get it to -2 defense since she can debuff defense, right? Then we have Korrina here. We have Rising Tide 18 buffs, assuming no stats as well, which is fairly easy to do. And then Alistair as well, easy to do. Virulent Toxin 5, you just have to poison, just use Touch Bomb. And then we have Restrain as the innate multiplier. Now let's just put Gold Zone for all of them to have like an equal comparison, right? Even with Gold Zone, Korrina still cannot beat Cynthia. It's still very high though, really high damage. Alistair 34k, it's also pretty good damage. So should you summon Korrina and Marshadow? It's yes and no. Yes, because she has very high nuke, high DPS, you can steal the stats, very useful for Legend Gauntlet, can max Team Screed. No, because her anniversary is near. And then if you already have other ghost damage healers like any Anniversary Lily, which I haven't even talked about yet. Anniversary Lily is a really good ghost damage healer. If you have her, or Signal to Cynthia with Giratina, you don't need her unless you really want to steal the speculative stuff, steal stats maybe, I guess. If you want her, what move level should you aim? Honestly, all of them are pretty good, right? She works fine at 1 out of 5, 2 out of 5, 3 out of 5. Obviously, the higher the move level, the better she does. 1 out of 5, she has good DPS, decent nuke, can buff crit. 2 out of 5, you get more DPS. You have Sim Reload 9 for speculative, right? And then at 3 out of 5, you have even higher nuke, higher DPS.